Long before science and reason dominated the halls of power, kings and queens turned to the unseen forces of magic to secure their thrones and shape the fate of their empires. Take King Solomon, for instance, a ruler whose name is synonymous with wisdom, but whose legend is steeped in tales of commanding spirits, summoning demons, and wielding a ring that granted him dominion over the supernatural. These stories aren't just fantastical myths, they reveal a world where magic was a cornerstone of royal authority, a tool as vital as any sword or crown. From the courts of ancient Egypt to the palaces of medieval Europe, sorcery wasn't just a spectacle, it was a calculated strategy, a way to inspire awe, instill fear, and manipulate the very fabric of power. But how did these rulers harness the arcane arts? What secrets did their sorcerers guard? And how did their rituals shape the course of history? In this video, we'll journey into the shadowy corridors of ancient royal courts, uncovering the truth behind the spells, the spirits, and the sorcerers who held empires in their hand. This isn't just a story of the past, it's a window into how belief, politics, and culture intertwine to shape the world we know today. So, let's step into the world where magic ruled and discover the hidden forces that once decided the fate of nations. In the cradle of civilization, where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers carved their paths through the land, the seeds of magic and sorcery first took root in the halls of power. Mesopotamia, often called the birthplace of civilization, was also the birthplace of royal magic. Here, kings weren't just rulers, they were intermediaries between the gods and their people. To maintain their divine mandate, they turned to priests and magicians who wielded rituals and incantations to secure favor from the heavens. The Babylonian kings, for instance, relied heavily on astrologers to interpret the movements of the stars, believing that celestial patterns held the keys to their kingdom's fate. These weren't mere superstitions, they were calculated acts of statecraft, blending the spiritual with the political to reinforce the king's authority. Meanwhile, along the banks of the Nile, the pharaohs of ancient Egypt took this fusion of magic and power to even greater heights. For them, magic wasn't just a tool, it was a divine right. The pharaohs were seen as living gods, and their ability to command the supernatural was central to their rule. Dream interpreters, known as masters of secrets, played a crucial role in guiding royal decisions. When a pharaoh faced a critical choice, they would often seek visions in their sleep, trusting these dreams to reveal the will of the gods. The famous dream stele of Thutmose Roman IV, for example, recounts how the young king received a divine message in his sleep, promising him the throne if he restored the Sphinx. This wasn't just a story, it was a carefully crafted narrative to legitimize his rule through the language of the divine. But magic in these ancient courts wasn't limited to dreams and stars. Oracles and divination were equally vital. In Mesopotamia, priests would examine the livers of sacrificed animals, interpreting their shapes and markings as messages from the gods. In Egypt, the opening of the mouth ceremony was performed to ensure the deceased pharaoh could speak in the afterlife, a ritual that underscored the belief in magic's power to transcend even death. These practices weren't isolated to one culture, they spread, carried by trade routes and conquests, influencing neighboring kingdoms and empires. The Hittites, for example, adopted many of these rituals, blending them with their own traditions to create a unique system of royal magic. What's fascinating is how these early practices laid the groundwork for the role of magic in later royal courts. They weren't just about predicting the future or appeasing the gods, they were about control. By claiming a connection to the divine, kings could justify their rule, inspire loyalty, and deter rebellion. Magic became a language of power, one that transcended borders and cultures, evolving into a universal tool of statecraft. And as these traditions spread, they took on new forms, adapting to the beliefs and needs of each society they touched. From Mesopotamia to Egypt and beyond, the origins of royal magic reveal a world where the line between the sacred and the political was often blurred, shaping the course of history in ways we're only beginning to understand. As we move deeper into the world of ancient royal courts, we encounter figures who were both feared and revered: the court sorcerers. These weren't just wandering mystics or village shamans. They were elite advisors, often standing shoulder to shoulder with kings and queens, shaping the destiny of empires. In many ways, they were the original power brokers, blending the spiritual with the strategic to influence everything from military campaigns to royal marriages. Take Merlin, for example, the legendary wizard of Arthurian lore. He wasn't just a magician, he was a kingmaker, guiding Arthur from obscurity to the throne and ensuring the stability of Camelot. His role wasn't just about casting spells, it was about wielding influence, using his knowledge of the arcane to navigate the treacherous waters of politics and war. But Merlin is just one example. In the Persian Empire, magicians known as the Magi held a similar position of power. These weren't mere fortune tellers, they were scholars, astronomers, and spiritual leaders who advised the king on matters of state. Their ability to interpret omens and divine the will of the gods gave them an almost unshakable authority. When a Persian king faced a critical decision whether to go to war, forge an alliance, or even choose a successor, he would often consult the Magi, trusting their insights as much as his own judgment. Their role was so integral that they became symbols of wisdom and power, their influence extending far beyond the borders of Persia. What made these court sorcerers so indispensable was their perceived connection to the divine. In a world where the line between the natural and the supernatural was often blurred, their ability to commune with gods, spirits, or otherworldly forces gave them a unique edge. They weren't just advisors, they were intermediaries, bridging the gap between the mortal and the divine. This connection wasn't just symbolic, it was practical. By claiming to channel the will of the gods, they could justify decisions, rally support, and even quell dissent. Their words carried weight because they were seen as more than human, as conduits of a higher power. To maintain this authority, court sorcerers relied on a combination of rituals and tools. In Mesopotamia, for instance, they used clay tablets inscribed with incantations to summon spirits or ward off evil. In Egypt, they carried amulets and performed elaborate ceremonies to invoke the protection of the gods. These weren't just theatrical displays, they were carefully crafted performances designed to reinforce their power and mystique. Even the tools they used, crystal balls, wands, or sacred texts, were imbued with symbolic meaning, serving as both instruments of magic and symbols of their authority. The rituals themselves were often shrouded in secrecy, known only to a select few. This exclusivity added to their allure, creating an aura of mystery that further elevated their status. In some cases, these rituals were so complex that they required years of study to master, ensuring that only the most skilled and dedicated could rise to the position of court sorcerer. This wasn't just about power, it was about control. By monopolizing access to the divine, these sorcerers ensured their place at the heart of royal courts, where their influence could shape the course of history. What's striking is how these practices transcended cultures and eras. Whether it was Merlin in medieval Britain, the Magi in Persia, or the dream interpreters of Egypt, the role of the court sorcerer remained remarkably consistent. They were more than just advisors, they were architects of power, using their knowledge of the arcane to navigate the complexities of politics, war, and diplomacy. Their legacy is a testament to the enduring allure of magic and to the ways in which belief and power have always been intertwined. As we explore further, we'll see how these traditions evolved, adapting to new cultures and challenges, but always retaining their core purpose to shape the fate of nations. The rituals and ceremonies of ancient royal courts were far more than mere displays of piety. They were grand spectacles, meticulously choreographed to inspire awe, instill fear, and reinforce the ruler's divine authority. These events were often steeped in symbolism, blending the spiritual with the theatrical to create an atmosphere of power and mystery. Take, for instance, the Roman practice of augury, where priests known as augurs would interpret the flight patterns of birds to determine the will of the gods. Before any major decision, be it a military campaign or the construction of a temple, the augurs would perform their rites, their observations shaping the course of the empire. This wasn't just about divination, it was about control. By framing their decisions as divinely sanctioned, Roman leaders could rally support and quell dissent, all under the guise of celestial approval. In China, the emperor's role as the Son of Heaven required him to perform elaborate rituals to maintain harmony between the human and cosmic realms. The most famous of these was the annual Feng Shan ceremony, conducted atop Mount Tai. Here, the emperor would offer sacrifices to heaven and earth, reaffirming his mandate to rule. The ceremony was a breathtaking display of pageantry, involving thousands of participants, intricate choreography, and offerings of rare treasures. But it wasn't just about spectacle. It was a deeply symbolic act designed to align the emperor's rule with the natural order. Any misstep in the ritual could be seen as a sign of divine displeasure, threatening the stability of the entire empire. Blood sacrifices were another common feature of royal rituals, particularly in cultures where the gods were believed to demand tangible offerings. In Mesoamerica, the Aztec rulers presided over ceremonies that involved the sacrifice of captives, their blood seen as a vital offering to sustain the sun and ensure the continuation of the world. These events were not only religious acts but also political tools, reinforcing the ruler's connection to the divine and demonstrating his power over life and death. The psychological impact on both participants and observers was profound, creating a sense of reverence and fear that cemented the ruler's authority. Incantations and curses also played a significant role in royal magic. In ancient Mesopotamia, priests would recite elaborate spells to protect the king from harm or to curse his enemies. These incantations were often inscribed on clay tablets, their words believed to carry immense power. Similarly, in Egypt, execration rituals involved inscribing the names of enemies on pottery or figurines, which were then smashed or buried to symbolically destroy their power. These practices weren't just about superstition, they were psychological warfare designed to weaken adversaries and bolster the king's confidence. The tools and artifacts used in these rituals were as important as the ceremonies themselves. From the sacred wands of Egyptian priests to the astrolabes of Persian magicians, these objects were imbued with symbolic meaning and practical power. The Roman litus, a curved staff used by augurs, wasn't just a tool for marking sacred spaces, it was a symbol of their authority to interpret the divine will. Similarly, the Chinese emperor's jade bai, a circular disc with a central hole, represented the heavens and was used in rituals to communicate with celestial forces. These artifacts weren't just functional, they were extensions of the ruler's power, tangible links to the supernatural world. What's remarkable about these rituals is how they transcended mere superstition, becoming integral to the political and cultural fabric of their societies. They were performances of power designed to awe both subjects and rivals and to reinforce the ruler's divine mandate. Whether through the flight of birds, the flow of blood, or the recitation of ancient spells, these ceremonies shaped the course of history, leaving a legacy that continues to fascinate us today. As we explore further, we'll uncover the tools and artifacts that made these rituals possible, and how they became symbols of authority in their own right. Among the most enduring symbols of royal power were the magical artifacts that adorned ancient courts. These weren't mere decorations, they were believed to hold supernatural powers, serving as both protection and proof of a ruler's divine right to govern. Take the Seal of Solomon, for example, a legendary ring said to grant King Solomon command over spirits and demons. According to lore, the seal bore a hexagram, a symbol that later became associated with wisdom and divine authority. This wasn't just a story, it was a powerful narrative that reinforced Solomon's image as a ruler chosen by the heavens, his ring a tangible link to the unseen forces that guided his reign. In ancient Egypt, the ankh was another potent symbol of royal magic. Often depicted in the hands of pharaohs and gods, this cross-like symbol with a loop at the top represented eternal life. For the pharaohs, the ankh wasn't just a religious icon. It was a statement of their immortality and their role as mediators between the mortal world and the divine. When a pharaoh held the ankh, it wasn't just a gesture. It was a declaration of their unbreakable connection to the gods, a visual reminder to their subjects that their rule was both sacred and eternal. But these artifacts weren't limited to the Middle East or Africa. Across the globe, royal scepters, staffs, and crowns were imbued with similar significance. In medieval Europe, the scepter became a symbol of a king's authority, often adorned with precious stones and intricate carvings. These weren't just symbols of wealth, they were believed to channel divine power, their very presence a reminder of the ruler's ordained status. The orb, often held in the monarch's other hand, represented the world itself, reinforcing the idea that the king's power extended over all creation. Amulets and talismans also played a crucial role in royal courts, serving as personal protections for rulers and their families. In Mesopotamia, kings wore amulets inscribed with prayers and incantations, believing these small objects could ward off evil spirits and curses. Similarly, in ancient China, jade amulets were prized for their supposed ability to protect the wearer from harm and bring good fortune. These objects weren't just accessories, they were lifelines, their presence offering a sense of security in a world where unseen forces were thought to hold sway. The symbolism behind these artifacts was as important as their perceived powers. Each object carried layers of meaning, from the materials used to the designs etched into their surfaces. Gold, for instance, was often chosen for its association with the sun and divine radiance, while precious stones like lapis lazuli were believed to connect the wearer to the heavens. The intricate patterns and inscriptions on these artifacts weren't random. They were carefully crafted to amplify their magical properties, turning them into conduits of power. Yet, for all their beauty and significance, these artifacts also had a darker side. Many were used not just to protect but to control, their powers wielded as tools of intimidation and manipulation. The same amulet that shielded a king from harm could also be used to curse his enemies, its magic a double-edged sword. This duality reflects the complex nature of royal magic, a force that could inspire awe and fear in equal measure, its influence shaping the fate of empires. As we delve deeper into the world of ancient royal courts, we'll uncover how these artifacts were not just symbols of power but instruments of control, their magic both a blessing and a curse. From the gleaming scepters of Europe to the sacred amulets of the East, these objects reveal a world where the line between the divine and the mortal was often blurred, their legacy a testament to the enduring allure of magic in the halls of power. While the glittering artifacts and grand rituals of royal courts often symbolized divine favor and protection, there was a darker side to the world of royal magic, one that thrived in shadows and whispers. Curses and dark magic were not just the stuff of legends. They were real tools wielded by kings, queens, and their advisors to eliminate rivals, punish enemies, and maintain control. In the ancient world, the fear of a curse could be as powerful as the curse itself, shaping decisions and destinies in ways that still echo through history. One of the most striking examples comes from ancient Rome, where curse tablets, known as depictions, were commonly used. These thin sheets of lead, inscribed with the names of enemies and invocations to the gods, were often buried in graves or thrown into wells, believed to carry the weight of the underworld. A Roman noble might commission a curse tablet to ruin a political rival, calling upon the gods to strike them with misfortune, illness, or even death. These weren't just acts of petty revenge, they were calculated moves in the high-stakes game of power, where even the threat of a curse could destabilize an opponent's position. But the use of dark magic wasn't confined to Rome. In medieval Europe, accusations of witchcraft became a potent weapon in royal courts. Kings and queens, fearing plots against their rule, often turned to witch trials to root out perceived threats. The infamous case of Joan of Arc, accused of witchcraft and heresy, is a stark reminder of how magic, or the accusation of it, could be used to destroy even the most formidable figures. These trials weren't just about superstition, they were about control. By labeling someone a witch, rulers could justify their removal, silencing dissent and reinforcing their own authority. Fear of curses also extended beyond the court, shaping the behavior of entire populations. In ancient Egypt, execration rituals were performed to curse enemies of the state, their names inscribed on pottery or figurines and then smashed or buried. The psychological impact of such rituals was profound, instilling a sense of dread that kept potential rebels in line. Similarly, in Mesopotamia, kings would publicly declare curses against anyone who dared to deface their monuments or challenge their rule. These weren't empty threats, they were carefully crafted messages designed to strike fear into the hearts of both subjects and rivals. The role of dark magic wasn't limited to internal politics, it also played a significant part in warfare. Kings and generals often turned to sorcerers and shamans to gain an edge on the battlefield. In ancient China, military strategists would consult diviners to determine the most auspicious time to attack, believing that the alignment of the stars could tip the scales of victory. Meanwhile, in medieval Europe, armies would carry talismans and amulets into battle, trusting in their protective powers to shield them from harm. These practices weren't just about faith, they were about morale, giving soldiers the confidence to fight with the belief that the gods were on their side. What's fascinating is how these dark practices reveal the dual nature of royal magic. On one hand, it was a tool of fear and control, used to eliminate threats and maintain order. On the other, it was a source of hope and strength, offering protection and guidance in times of uncertainty. This duality underscores the complexity of magic in royal courts, a force that could inspire both awe and terror, shaping the course of history in ways that continue to captivate us today. As we move forward, we'll explore how these practices evolved, adapting to new challenges and leaving a legacy that still influences our understanding of power and belief. Magic wasn't just confined to the courts or the shadows. It also marched onto the battlefield, where kings and generals turned to sorcery to tip the scales of war in their favor. Across cultures, the belief in supernatural intervention shaped military strategies, with sorcerers and shamans playing pivotal roles in ensuring victory. In many ways, magic became a weapon as potent as any sword or spear, one that could strike fear into the hearts of enemies long before the first clash of armies. In African kingdoms, for example, war drums and chants were more than just tools to rally troops. They were believed to carry the power of the ancestors, summoning their strength and protection. The rhythmic pounding of drums wasn't just a call to arms, it was a spiritual invocation, a way to channel divine energy onto the battlefield. Warriors would chant incantations, their voices rising in unison, as if to weave a protective shield around their ranks. These rituals weren't just about morale, they were acts of psychological warfare designed to unnerve the enemy and bolster the confidence of their own forces. The Norse, too, had their own brand of battlefield magic rooted in the ancient art of runes. These symbols, carved into weapons, shields, and even the bodies of warriors, were believed to grant protection, strength, and even the favor of the gods. Before a battle, a Norse chieftain might consult a rune master to inscribe spells onto his sword, ensuring it would strike true and bring victory. The psychological impact of these practices was profound. Imagine facing an enemy whose weapons were etched with symbols said to summon the wrath of Odin himself. It's no wonder that fear of the supernatural often outweighed fear of physical combat. But magic in warfare wasn't just about protection or intimidation. It was also about strategy. In ancient China, military leaders relied on divination to determine the most auspicious time to attack. The alignment of the stars, the patterns of the wind, even the behavior of animals, all were seen as omens that could influence the outcome of a battle. A general might delay an assault or change tactics based on the advice of a court diviner, trusting that the gods had revealed the path to victory. This blend of strategy and superstition highlights how deeply magic was woven into the fabric of warfare, shaping decisions that could alter the course of history. The psychological aspect of these practices cannot be overstated. Armies that believed in the power of magic fought with a conviction that their enemies often lacked. A soldier who thought his shield was enchanted or his sword blessed by the gods would charge into battle with unshakable confidence. Conversely, an enemy who feared curses or divine retribution might hesitate, their resolve weakened by the mere suggestion of supernatural intervention. In this way, magic became a force multiplier, amplifying the strengths of one side while exploiting the fears of the other. As we shift from the battlefield to the negotiating table, it's clear that magic's influence extended far beyond warfare. Diplomacy, too, was shaped by the unseen forces of the arcane. Kings and queens often employed sorcerers and astrologers to guide their alliances and treaties, believing that the stars and spirits could reveal the true intentions of their counterparts. A well-timed prophecy or a carefully cast spell could sway negotiations, turning potential enemies into allies or exposing hidden betrayals. Magic, it seems, was as much a tool of statecraft as it was of war, its reach extending into every corner of royal power. Magic wasn't just a tool for war or intimidation. It also played a subtle yet powerful role in the delicate art of diplomacy. In the ancient world, where alliances could make or break empires, rulers often turned to the supernatural to secure their interests. Enchanted relics, prophetic advisors, and even sorcerers became key players in the high-stakes game of negotiation, blurring the lines between politics and the arcane. One of the most fascinating examples comes from the exchanges between the Byzantine and Persian courts, where gifts of magical significance were traded as symbols of trust and power. A jeweled amulet or a sacred artifact wasn't just a token of goodwill, it was a statement, a way to demonstrate a ruler's connection to the divine and their ability to harness its power. These exchanges weren't just about symbolism, they were strategic moves. A ruler who sent an enchanted relic to another court wasn't just offering a gift, they were subtly asserting their influence. The recipient, in turn, might interpret the gift as a sign of favor or a veiled threat, depending on the context. For instance, when the Byzantine emperor sent a relic said to possess protective powers to the Persian king, it wasn't just a gesture of peace, it was a reminder of the emperor's divine backing and the potential consequences of breaking an alliance. These gifts carried weight because they were believed to hold real power, their magic a tangible extension of the ruler's authority. Sorcerers and astrologers also played a crucial role in diplomatic negotiations. Kings and queens often relied on their insights to navigate the complexities of alliances and treaties. A Persian magus, for example, might be consulted to interpret omens before a treaty was signed, ensuring the gods favored the agreement. Similarly, Byzantine rulers employed dream interpreters to guide their decisions, trusting visions from the divine to reveal the true intentions of their counterparts. These practices weren't just about superstition, they were about control. By framing their decisions as divinely inspired, rulers could justify their actions and sway negotiations in their favor. But the use of magic in diplomacy wasn't limited to gifts and advisors. Rituals and ceremonies also played a part, often serving as public displays of unity and divine favor. When two kingdoms formed an alliance, they might conduct a joint ceremony to invoke the blessings of their respective gods, symbolizing the merging of their fates. These events were carefully choreographed to inspire confidence and loyalty, their grandeur reinforcing the idea that the alliance was not just a political arrangement but a sacred bond. The psychological impact of such rituals was profound, creating a sense of shared destiny that could strengthen even the most fragile of alliances. As we explore the role of magic in diplomacy, it's impossible to overlook the contributions of women, who often wielded significant influence in royal courts through their mastery of the arcane. From priestesses to queens, women played a vital role in shaping the political and spiritual landscape of their time. In the next section, we'll delve into their stories, uncovering how they used magic to navigate the complexities of power and leave their mark on history. Their legacy is a testament to the enduring interplay between belief, politics, and the unseen forces that shaped the ancient world. While the halls of ancient royal courts were often dominated by men, women wielded a unique and formidable kind of power, one rooted in their mastery of magic and the mystical. From priestesses to queens, women played a pivotal role in shaping the spiritual and political landscapes of their time, often leveraging their connection to the supernatural to influence decisions and secure their place in history. Take the Oracle of Delphi, for instance, one of the most revered figures in ancient Greece. Seated atop her tripod in the Temple of Apollo, she delivered prophecies that kings and generals traveled great distances to hear. Her words weren't just predictions, they were directives shaping the fate of empires and the decisions of rulers. The oracle's authority stemmed from her perceived ability to channel the god Apollo, making her a bridge between the mortal and divine. In a world where the gods were believed to hold ultimate power, her voice carried unparalleled weight. In medieval Europe, women like Melusine, the legendary witch queen, became symbols of both fear and fascination. Melusine's story, woven into the folklore of France and Luxembourg, tells of a noblewoman with supernatural origins who used her magical abilities to protect her family and kingdom. While her tale is steeped in myth, it reflects a broader truth. Women who were seen as sorceresses or enchantresses often held significant sway in royal courts. Their perceived connection to the mystical gave them a kind of power that transcended traditional gender roles, allowing them to influence politics, alliances, and even succession. In a patriarchal society, magic became a tool for women to carve out spaces of authority, their abilities both respected and feared. But it wasn't just in Europe or Greece where women held such roles. In ancient Egypt, the priestesses of Isis were revered for their knowledge of healing and divination, their rituals integral to the pharaoh's rule. These women weren't just spiritual leaders, they were advisors, their insights guiding decisions that affected the entire kingdom. Similarly, in Mesopotamia, the two priestesses of the moon god Nana were seen as living embodiments of divine power, their presence essential to maintaining the favor of the gods. Their roles weren't ceremonial, they were central to the functioning of the state, their magic a vital thread in the fabric of royal authority. What's striking about these women is how they navigated the constraints of their societies. In a world where men typically held the reins of power, their connection to the mystical gave them a unique form of influence. They were often seen as intermediaries between the human and divine, their abilities granting them a kind of autonomy that few other women enjoyed. Yet this power came with risks. Accusations of witchcraft or heresy could quickly turn admiration into persecution, as seen in the tragic stories of women like Joan of Arc or the countless others targeted during the witch trials of medieval Europe. Even so, their legacy endures, a testament to the ways in which magic allowed women to challenge the status quo and leave their mark on history. As we reflect on the role of women in royal courts, it's impossible to ignore the broader shifts that began to reshape the world of magic. The rise of science, the spread of Christianity, and the Enlightenment's emphasis on reason gradually eroded the belief in the supernatural as a source of power. Kings and queens no longer relied on oracles or sorcerers to guide their decisions. Instead, they turned to advisors, diplomats, and scholars. The rituals and artifacts that once defined royal authority became relics of a bygone era, their magic fading into myth and legend. Yet, the stories of these women and the power they wielded remain a powerful reminder of how belief, politics, and the arcane once intertwined to shape the course of history. As the world entered the Renaissance and the Age of Enlightenment, the once unshakable bond between royal power and magic began to fray. The rise of organized religion, particularly Christianity, played a significant role in this shift. Churches and religious authorities increasingly viewed magic as a threat to their own power, labeling it as heresy or the work of the devil. Kings and queens, eager to align themselves with the church's growing influence, started to distance themselves from the sorcerers and rituals that had once defined their rule. The fear of being accused of witchcraft or heresy became a powerful deterrent, as even the slightest association with magic could lead to scandal, exile, or worse. The infamous witch hunts of the Renaissance, which swept across Europe and the Americas, were a stark reminder of this new reality. Thousands of people, many of them women, were accused of practicing dark magic, their trials often fueled by political motives or personal vendettas. For rulers, the message was clear. Magic was no longer a tool of power, it was a liability. Scientific advancements also played a crucial role in the decline of royal magic. As thinkers like Galileo and Newton began to unravel the mysteries of the natural world, the idea that the universe could be understood through reason and observation took hold. The stars, once seen as omens from the gods, were now celestial bodies governed by laws of physics. The rituals and incantations that had once guided royal decisions began to seem outdated, even superstitious, in the face of this new knowledge. Kings and queens, eager to present themselves as enlightened rulers, turned to scholars and scientists for guidance, leaving the court sorcerers and astrologers behind. The shift wasn't just about practicality, it was about image. In a world increasingly shaped by reason, magic no longer carried the same weight of authority. Political reforms further accelerated this decline. As monarchies gave way to more democratic forms of government, the idea of a ruler's divine right to govern came under scrutiny. The French Revolution, for example, marked a dramatic break from the past as the monarchy was overthrown and the concept of divine authority was replaced by the principles of liberty and equality. In this new political landscape, magic had no place. The rituals and symbols that had once legitimized royal power were now seen as relics of a bygone era, their mystique replaced by the cold logic of constitutions and laws. Even in kingdoms that retained their monarchies, rulers began to adopt a more secular approach to governance, relying on diplomacy and military strength rather than the blessings of the gods. Yet, the legacy of royal magic endures. While the rituals and artifacts may have faded from the halls of power, their influence can still be seen in the stories we tell and the symbols we cherish. The legends of King Arthur and Merlin, the tales of the Oracle of Delphi, and the myths of the Pharaohs continue to captivate us, reminding us of a time when the line between the mortal and the divine was blurred. These stories aren't just relics of the past, they are windows into how belief, politics, and culture once intertwined to shape the course of history. Even today, the idea of magic as a source of power and mystery continues to inspire, whether in literature, film, or our collective imagination. The decline of royal magic may have marked the end of an era, but its echoes still resonate, a testament to the enduring allure of the arcane in the human story. Though the age of royal magic may have faded, its echoes still reverberate through our modern world, shaping everything from the stories we tell to the way we think about power and mystery. The legends of sorcerers like Merlin, the tales of cursed artifacts, and the rituals of ancient courts have found new life in literature, film, and even contemporary occult practices. These stories aren't just relics of the past, they're living narratives that continue to captivate and inspire, reminding us of a time when the line between the mortal and the divine was blurred, and magic was a language of power. Take the enduring popularity of Arthurian legends, for example. The figure of Merlin, the wise and enigmatic wizard who guided King Arthur, has become a cultural icon, appearing in countless books, movies, and TV shows. His character embodies the archetype of the court sorcerer, a figure who wields knowledge of the arcane to shape the destiny of nations. From T.H. White's The Once and Future King to modern adaptations like The Sword in the Stone or Merlin, these stories explore themes of wisdom, sacrifice, and the tension between power and morality. They remind us that magic, in its essence, is about more than spells and potions. It's about the human desire to understand and control the forces that shape our lives. But it's not just Merlin who has left his mark. The legends of cursed royal artifacts like the Seal of Solomon or the Hope Diamond continue to fascinate us. These stories tap into our collective imagination, blending history with myth to create narratives that are as compelling as they are mysterious. The idea that an object could carry a curse, whether it's a ring, a gemstone, or a crown, speaks to our deep-seated belief in the power of symbols. Even today, museums and collectors are drawn to these artifacts, not just for their beauty or historical value, but for the stories they carry. They remind us that objects can hold meaning far beyond their physical form, becoming vessels for the hopes, fears, and ambitions of those who wield them. Modern occult practices, too, owe a debt to the traditions of royal magic. From tarot readings to ceremonial rituals, many contemporary practices draw on the symbolism and techniques of ancient courts. The tarot, for instance, was originally used as a game in Renaissance Europe, but its imagery, kings, queens, and courtly figures reflects the hierarchical structures of royal power. Today, it's used as a tool for divination, offering insights into the past, present, and future. Similarly, the resurgence of interest in astrology and alchemy reflects a longing to reconnect with the mystical traditions that once guided kings and queens. These practices remind us that, even in a world dominated by science and reason, there's still a place for wonder and the unknown. What's perhaps most fascinating is how these stories and traditions continue to shape our understanding of power. In a world where authority is often tied to wealth, technology, or political influence, the idea of magic offers a different kind of power, one that's rooted in mystery, intuition, and the unseen. It's a reminder that power isn't just about control, it's about connection to the past, to the divine, and to the forces that lie beyond our understanding. Whether it's through the pages of a fantasy novel, the rituals of a modern coven, or the legends of a cursed artifact, the legacy of royal magic endures, inviting us to explore the boundaries of what we know and what we believe. As we reflect on the cultural significance of royal magic, It's clear that these traditions are more than just historical curiosities. They're a testament to the enduring human fascination with the mystical. They remind us that even in a world shaped by logic and reason, there's still room for the extraordinary. And perhaps in that space between the known and the unknown, we find not just stories, but a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. The magic that thrived in ancient royal courts wasn't just a tool of power, it was a mirror, reflecting the deepest cultural and spiritual beliefs of its time. These practices were woven into the very fabric of society, shaping art, architecture, and literature in ways that still resonate today. Take Gothic cathedrals, for example. These towering masterpieces of medieval Europe weren't just places of worship, they were monuments to the mystical. Their intricate stained glass windows, adorned with scenes of saints and angels, were more than decorative. They were believed to channel divine light, transforming the space into a bridge between heaven and earth. The gargoyles perched on their rooftops weren't mere ornaments. They were talismans, warding off evil spirits and protecting the sacred space below. Every arch, every carving, every beam of light was imbued with symbolic meaning, a testament to the belief that the divine could be made tangible through art and architecture. In the Renaissance, the influence of royal magic took on a new form, blending with the burgeoning fields of science and philosophy. Alchemy, with its quest to transform base metals into gold and unlock the secrets of immortality, became a central theme in both art and thought. Paintings like Hieronymus Bosch's The Garden of Earthly Delights or the works of Leonardo da Vinci are filled with alchemical symbols, their hidden meanings inviting viewers to look beyond the surface. These weren't just artistic choices, they were expressions of a worldview that saw the material and the mystical as inseparable. The philosopher's stone, a legendary alchemical substance, wasn't just a scientific pursuit, it was a metaphor for spiritual enlightenment, a symbol of humanity's eternal quest for transformation and transcendence. Literature, too, was deeply shaped by the magic of royal courts. The Arthurian legends, with their tales of Merlin, Excalibur, and the Holy Grail, weren't just entertainment, they were cultural touchstones reflecting the ideals and anxieties of their time. The Grail, for instance, wasn't just a cup, it was a symbol of divine grace and the ultimate quest for meaning. These stories, passed down through generations, became a way to explore complex ideas about power, morality, and the human condition. They remind us that magic, in its essence, is a language, one that speaks to our deepest hopes, fears, and aspirations. But the cultural significance of royal magic goes beyond its artistic and literary legacy. It also raises important ethical questions. How did these practices shape the way rulers saw their subjects? Was magic a force for good, or was it a tool of manipulation and control? The use of curses, for example, reveals a darker side of royal magic, one that exploited fear and superstition to maintain power. At the same time, the rituals and symbols that defined these practices often served as a source of unity and identity, connecting people to something greater than themselves. This duality, the tension between the sacred and the profane, the benevolent and the malevolent, is a recurring theme in the history of royal magic, one that continues to challenge and inspire us. As we reflect on the cultural significance of these practices, it's clear that they were more than just historical curiosities. They were expressions of a worldview that saw the universe as a place of mystery and wonder, where the boundaries between the seen and the unseen were fluid and permeable. This perspective shaped not only the art and architecture of its time, but also the way people understood their place in the world. And while the age of royal magic may have passed, its legacy endures, inviting us to explore the boundaries of what we know and what we believe. In the next section, we'll delve into the ethical implications of these practices, examining how the use of magic in royal courts shaped the moral landscape of their time and what it means for us today. The use of magic in royal courts wasn't just about power. It was also fraught with ethical complexities that reveal the darker side of human ambition. At its core, royal magic was a tool of control, and like any tool, it could be wielded for both good and ill. On one hand, rituals and symbols provided a sense of order and unity, connecting rulers and their subjects to a shared spiritual framework. On the other, these practices often exploited fear and superstition, turning the mystical into a weapon of manipulation. Kings and queens who claimed divine favor or wielded curses weren't just asserting their authority. They were shaping the beliefs and behaviors of their people, often at a profound cost. One of the most troubling aspects of royal magic was its role in marginalizing and persecuting certain groups. Women, in particular, bore the brunt of this dynamic. While some, like the Oracle of Delphi or the priestesses of Isis, were revered for their mystical abilities, others were vilified as witches or sorceresses. The witch trials of medieval Europe are a stark example of how magic became a pretext for persecution. Women who were healers, midwives, or simply outspoken were often accused of practicing dark magic, their trials fueled by fear, jealousy, or political motives. These accusations weren't just about superstition, they were about maintaining social order, silencing dissent, and reinforcing patriarchal control. The same magic that elevated some women to positions of power could also destroy others, leaving a legacy of fear and injustice that echoes to this day. Minorities and outsiders were also vulnerable to the ethical pitfalls of royal magic. In many cultures, those who practiced different traditions or held alternative beliefs were seen as threats to the established order. The Roman Empire, for instance, viewed foreign religions and magical practices with suspicion, often labeling them as dangerous or subversive. This tension between the familiar and the foreign created a climate of exclusion where the mystical practices of one group could be demonized by another. The result was a cycle of persecution that reinforced divisions and stifled cultural exchange, all in the name of maintaining power. At the heart of these ethical dilemmas was the tension between power and morality. Magic, by its very nature, is ambiguous. It can heal or harm, protect or destroy. In the hands of rulers, this ambiguity became a double-edged sword. A king who used magic to inspire loyalty or protect his people might be seen as wise and just. But the same king could also use curses or divination to eliminate rivals, punish dissenters, or justify oppressive policies. The line between benevolence and tyranny was often blurred, leaving us to question whether the ends truly justified the means. Was it ethical to use supernatural forces to maintain order, even if it meant exploiting fear or perpetuating injustice? These are questions that resonate far beyond the ancient world, challenging us to consider the moral implications of power in all its forms. As we reflect on these ethical complexities, it's worth considering how the rise of science and reason reshaped our understanding of magic. The Enlightenment brought with it a new way of thinking, one that prioritized evidence, logic, and skepticism over superstition and tradition. For many, this shift was a step forward, freeing humanity from the constraints of fear and ignorance. But it also marked the end of an era, as the rituals and symbols that once defined royal power faded into myth and legend. Yet, even as science took center stage, the ethical questions raised by royal magic remained. How do we balance power and morality? How do we ensure that the tools we use to shape our world are wielded with integrity and compassion? These are questions that continue to challenge us, reminding us that the legacy of royal magic is not just a historical curiosity, it's a mirror reflecting the timeless struggle between the light and the dark within us all. As we step into the modern era, the practices of royal magic, once seen as the domain of gods and spirits, are now viewed through the lens of science. What ancient rulers believed to be supernatural forces, we now understand as complex human behaviors and psychological phenomena. Take divination, for example. When a Babylonian king consulted the stars or a Roman augur read the flight of birds, they weren't just relying on superstition. They were tapping into a deeply human need to find patterns and meaning in the world around them. Modern psychology calls this the apophenia effect, our tendency to perceive connections between unrelated events. It's the same impulse that makes us see faces in clouds or find significance in random coincidences. For ancient rulers, these patterns weren't just comforting, they were essential tools for decision-making, offering a sense of control in an unpredictable world. Curses, too, can be understood through the framework of science. The power of a curse often lies not in the magic itself, but in the belief of those who fear it. This is where the placebo and nocebo effect comes into play. Just as a placebo can make someone feel better through the power of belief, a nocebo can cause harm simply because the person believes they've been cursed. Studies have shown that people who believe they've been cursed can experience real physical symptoms, from headaches to fatigue, even when no actual harm has been done. In the context of royal courts, this psychological effect was a powerful tool. A king who could convince his enemies they were cursed didn't need to lift a finger. Their own minds would do the work for him. Anthropology offers another perspective, helping us see these practices not as mere superstition, but as cultural systems that served specific social and political functions. Rituals like the Egyptian opening of the mouth ceremony or the Mesopotamian liver divination weren't just about communicating with the gods. They were about reinforcing social hierarchies and maintaining order. By framing their actions as divinely sanctioned, rulers could justify their authority and unite their people under a shared belief system. These rituals were performances of power designed to inspire awe and loyalty. From this perspective, magic wasn't just a tool for individual rulers, it was a cornerstone of societal stability. Yet, even as science sheds light on these practices, some mysteries remain. Why did certain symbols, like the Seal of Solomon or the Ankh, hold such universal power across cultures? How did the rituals of one civilization influence those of another, spreading ideas and beliefs across vast distances? These questions remind us that while science can explain much, it doesn't have all the answers. The enduring allure of royal magic lies in its ability to straddle the line between the known and the unknown, offering glimpses into a world where the boundaries between the natural and the supernatural were fluid and permeable. As we reflect on these practices, it's clear that dismissing them as mere superstition misses the point. They were expressions of human creativity, ingenuity, and the desire to make sense of a complex world. Whether through the stars, the gods, or the power of belief, royal magic reveals something fundamental about who we are and who we've always been. And as we move forward, these ancient practices continue to challenge and inspire us, reminding us that the search for meaning is a journey without end. Even as science and reason have demystified many aspects of royal magic, some enigmas remain stubbornly unsolved, their secrets buried beneath layers of myth, history, and speculation. Among the most enduring of these mysteries is the Philosopher's Stone, a legendary substance said to grant immortality and turn base metals into gold. Alchemists across centuries, from medieval Europe to ancient China, devoted their lives to uncovering its secrets, believing it held the key to ultimate power and enlightenment. But was the Philosopher's Stone a real artifact, or was it a metaphor for something deeper, like spiritual transformation or the pursuit of knowledge? To this day, historians and scholars debate its true nature, with some arguing it was a tangible object and others suggesting it symbolized the alchemist's quest for perfection. The mystery endures, a tantalizing reminder of how the line between science and magic once blurred. Then there are the lost artifacts, objects of immense power and significance that vanished without a trace. The Seal of Solomon, said to grant its wearer command over spirits, is one such relic. While legends abound about its creation and use, no physical evidence of the seal has ever been found. Did it exist at all, or was it a myth crafted to elevate Solomon's reputation as a wise and powerful king? Similarly, the Ark of the Covenant, often described as a divine weapon and a sacred vessel, has eluded discovery for millennia. Its disappearance has sparked countless theories, from hidden tombs to secret societies, each more intriguing than the last. These lost artifacts aren't just historical curiosities. They're symbols of humanity's fascination with the unknown, their absence fueling endless speculation and exploration. The unanswered questions surrounding royal magic aren't just about objects, they're also about practices. Take the rituals of the Egyptian opening of the mouth ceremony, for example. While we know the basic steps, how priests used tools to symbolically restore the senses of the deceased, many details remain shrouded in mystery. What incantations were spoken? What specific tools were used and why? These gaps in our knowledge leave room for interpretation, inviting historians and enthusiasts to piece together the puzzle. The same is true for Mesopotamian divination practices, where the exact meanings of certain omens and symbols are still debated. These mysteries aren't just academic, they're windows into how ancient cultures understood the world, offering glimpses of beliefs and traditions that shaped entire civilizations. What makes these unsolved mysteries so captivating is their ability to spark curiosity and imagination. They remind us that history isn't just a collection of facts, it's a living, breathing narrative full of gaps and questions that invite exploration. For historians, these mysteries are a call to action, driving them to uncover new evidence and reinterpret old texts. For enthusiasts, they're a source of wonder, a chance to connect with the past in a deeply personal way. And for all of us, they're a reminder that some questions may never be fully answered, and that's part of what makes them so compelling. As we reflect on these enduring enigmas, it's clear that the allure of royal magic lies not just in what we know, but in what we don't. These mysteries challenge us to think beyond the obvious, to explore the boundaries of history and imagination. They remind us that the past is never truly finished. It's a story still being written, one discovery at a time. And as we turn the page to the conclusion of our journey, we're left with a profound appreciation for the ways in which magic, mystery, and history continue to intertwine, shaping our understanding of the world and our place within it. As we bring our journey through the world of ancient royal magic to a close, it's impossible not to marvel at the profound impact these practices had on the course of history. From the dream interpreters of Egypt to the astrologers of Babylon, from the sorcerers of Persia to the witches of medieval Europe, magic was far more than a collection of rituals and symbols. It was a language of power, a way for rulers to assert their authority, inspire loyalty, and navigate the uncertainties of their time. These practices reveal a world where the line between the sacred and the political was often blurred, where belief in the supernatural shaped decisions that altered the fate of nations. What's striking is how these traditions reflect the complexities of human belief. Magic wasn't just about control, it was about connection to the gods, to the cosmos, and to the shared values that bound societies together. It offered a way to make sense of the unknown, to find meaning in chaos, and to assert order in a world that often felt unpredictable. But it also exposed the darker side of human ambition, showing how fear and superstition could be wielded as tools of manipulation and oppression. The same rituals that united people could also divide them. The same symbols that inspired awe could also instill terror. This duality, the tension between the sacred and the profane, is a recurring theme in the history of royal magic, one that continues to resonate with us today. As we reflect on these ancient practices, it's worth asking, what would modern politics look like if magic still held sway? Imagine a world where leaders consulted oracles before making decisions, where alliances were sealed with enchanted relics, and where the stars dictated the timing of elections. Would it bring a sense of unity and purpose, or would it amplify the divisions and fears that already plague our societies? The question isn't just a thought experiment. It's a way to explore how belief, power, and culture intersect, and how the lessons of the past might inform our understanding of the present. Before we wrap up, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about the role of magic in ancient royal courts? Could these practices have a place in our modern world, or are they best left in the past? Share your ideas in the comments below. We're excited to hear your perspectives. And if you're as fascinated by historical mysteries as we are, don't forget to explore more stories on the channel. From lost civilizations to unsolved enigmas, there's always more to discover. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the shadowy corridors of royal magic. We'll see you in the next video.